welcome to the Can Innovate podcast, where we highlight Canadian innovators who are changing the game. I'm Sapna Malhotra, your proud Canadian host. The Can Innovate podcast is about providing industry insights from Canadian innovators that are doing it. They are really crushing it out there in the industry. These innovators share insightful thought leadership, tips, tricks, tactics that we can all adopt. Plus, they even share their own entrepreneurial tales of successes and failures, and they really show us what we can learn. So let's continue to innovate our own businesses, lives, and careers. And if you know of any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. You know I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me via email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in a review. All right, let's get to this episode. We are really honored today to have Dr. Chris McKillop with us today. She really knows her stuff and is a pioneer in her field. In fact, she gained her degree in artificial intelligence in the 1990s and has an MSc in human-centered computer systems, a PhD in educational technology, and she, of course, has researched and published tons of articles on emotional dimensions of learning. She has a long record of pioneering technological innovations to improve learning. Chris is really passionate about artificial intelligence and empathy and how it can help improve people's lives. She incorporated her first company, Turalt, when she was 50 and is proud to be an older woman in tech advancing AI for the good. Did I miss anything in that introduction?
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty of things I can go on about. I have a very eclectic and strange background, and maybe some of that will come out later on in the discussion. But that will do for now.
Excellent, excellent. So how did you come up with this idea about Turalt? And exactly what is it for our listeners?
Well, interestingly, Turalt stands for Hero of Ours, Alan Turing. T-U-R is Turing. A-L stands for Alan. And we put the T on the end because alt is very computerish. And he gave us the foundations of artificial intelligence. And most people know about Alan Turing from the imitation game. And a lot of people understand what the Turing Test is. And the interesting thing about the Turing Test is really it's all about what qualities of text-based communication would show that you're actually speaking to a human being rather than a machine. And my belief is that that would be empathy. So the reason I started Chirod was I and my business partner were having some real problems with online communication with our bosses. So really every time we were getting an email from our boss, we were just so frustrated. So we thought, okay, so how do we deal with this? We were getting so frustrated, it was either do something about this or kill our bosses. And we decided that killing our bosses really wasn't a good thing to do and that there was a better way to handle this that could incorporate into a more productive business model. And that was to use our backgrounds in artificial intelligence and ed tech and our understanding of, the psychology of social intelligence and how we communicate to actually come up with some really interesting online tools to help us increase and strengthen our digital emotional intelligence and actually create empathy online so we can actually be better human beings online. So that's fundamentally where this came from. It came from a pain point that we were actually having. And we were also really inspired at the time by the entrepreneurial spirit in Toronto because that really rubbed off on us. We both moved here. And, we took some entrepreneurship courses and this is when we really realized we can do this. We don't have to be business MBA type people. We don't have to have had all this corporate experience before. We can use this lean methodology to really explore this. And with our research skills, that gave us a really good foundation to move ahead with our company.
So out of curiosity, where did you move from? Because I'm sure our listeners are going to be curious about your accent.
Well, my accent's a wee bit strange. I come from the west coast of Scotland, and then when I moved to England, nobody could understand a word I said. So, I lost a wee bit of the accent there. And then I moved to Wales for 6 years, and some people who, if they know the Welsh accent, sometimes the way I pronounce things sounds a wee bit Welsh. So I'm Scottish originally, and I moved here from Scotland in 2008, and I'm now a proud Canadian citizen as well.
Oh, excellent. Well, we're glad to have you, especially when we're talking about artificial intelligence and empathy. So tell me something about this Turalt. Exactly how does it work from an employee perspective? So is it a software or is it, some sort of tool that's on your computer? What exactly is it and what does it really do?
Okay, so we have a number of different tools to help with a number of different areas. Now, we've started with email because email is just this problem that we have. It's the elephant in the room, and nobody really is addressing this. And we didn't want to address it with just another email system. We wanted to actually support people with their communication. So one of our tools that we've developed is an email psychometric. And it's actually the world's first email psychometric. And it's also using artificial intelligence. And a lot of people have not realized that you can do this with psychometrics. So this is a 15, 20-minute online test that anyone can take. Does not look at your emails, so you don't have to be worried about that. We do not look at them. And will instantly analyze your responses and instantly generate a report, which is a professional development report, which is looking at almost your email personality, probably a good way of describing it. So it's looking at how you approach your natural tendencies and how you approach writing emails and how you perceive the tone of other people's emails. So this gives you some fundamental understanding into what your email skills are and what you are doing. What we've also done is we have a plugin that sits within your email system, and that will give you real-time feedback on your email. So it will show you how assertive you're being, how empathic you're being. It will look at the tone of it, the clarity of it, how long it is, all those elements that we know from our own research and from the scientific research that has actually gone on before cause miscommunication. And we can make predictions about what markers are going to potentially cause miscommunication. So that is like a real time as you're typing out your email to help you and to help you get the clarity of your message across and to help you get the correct tone across to minimize that communication breakdown.
So this is great because when I worked at Amdocs, which is a global company, I had an issue where I had feedback from my counterparts in Israel that my emails were really direct because my emails were never long stories. They were always 2 sentences. And so I was always really conscious about the tone. So I used to just put a happy face at the end of every email. So it was the same email, but because I didn't know how else to soften the tone about what we needed to get done and how we need to achieve things. So I became quite sensitive about that. And it really does make a difference about your relationship to the person on the other side.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we think that if we put emojis in it, it's going to be really clear what we're meaning. But then people don't realize that sometimes it can be really confusing. Sometimes they're not really clear. There's so many emojis now. And when I'm getting text messages, I'm like, what is that emoji? I can't quite work out what it means. And also on different devices, because we're picking up our emails, we're not using desktop computers anymore. We're using laptops, we're using tablet devices, we're using our phones. It can look very different. So what is a smiley face to you on somebody else's cell phone might actually look like a grimace. And you're like, whoa, what is this? What does the tone of this message mean now? So emojis can actually cause problems as well.
When you do this assessment, so on my emails, this report will generate kind of areas for improvement of how to be more effective, when I'm communicating with somebody via email. Is that how it kind of works?
Absolutely. That's what the email psychometric will actually do. It will basically show you how you tend to use empathy. Are you a very empathic person in email? Let's say your score comes back as that you're not a very empathic person. We'll show you that and we'll give you hints and tips for how you can actually become more empathic in your email communication.
This is great. So I hear, when I was getting prepped for this interview, I actually did a bit of research and I heard some alarming statistics about the burnout rate and how people are really unhappy about their jobs. Like apparently somebody had calculated that it was like $1 trillion problem in North America and 7 out of 10 people actually hate their jobs and are really frustrated. Is this email and all of those pieces part of that frustration about the communication in the workplace?
Email is certainly a big problem. We are getting so much email. We're spending about, a quarter of our day on email communication. And although companies have brought in other channels like Slack, business email use is actually still growing 3% every year. Now, I'm sure with more adoption, millennials and newer generations who are going away from email, that will at some point start reducing. But online communication is really, really problematic. If you look at the statistics, we're spending the quarter of our day on email communication. 64% of employees have actually sent or received an email causing anger or resentment. It's a real problem and so much time is being lost. 300 billion is lost annually in lost productivity from email alone. Now, some of that is we are getting a lot of spam. We've got to filter all our email. But a lot of that is the miscommunication. And if we were much clearer in our communication and the tone was being perceived and our message being perceived correctly, then that is all going to be reduced. We all know how annoying it is when we get an email back, especially a response to ours, and it's not the response we wanted. We're like, how could you possibly be sending this email? That is nothing to do with what I had originally intended. That can be very stressful. So you then got to try and get the email back on track. And I think constant online communication that we're doing, and even emailing people in the cubicle next to us, as literally happened to me once. I had a colleague emailing me and then popping her head around the corner going, did you get my email? We're forgetting that we can actually pick up the phone and we can go down to the next cubicle and actually speak with people or arrange face-to-face meetings. So there's constant asynchronous communication, which is great in one respect, can be very, very frustrating and cause a lot of this stress, and all compounding, with, the statistics that you've just presented.
So that's kind of interesting, because what I was noticing when I was doing some research here on LinkedIn, I have seen so many examples of almost email shame, of somebody showing, hey, this is an email I sent out for a sales call, and this is the kind of horrific response I got from a CEO or so-and-so. And they're actually sharing that on social media and almost kind of a little bit of shaming them.
Yeah, I think that is a problem. I think we really don't think when we are sending our messages online as to the harm we can potentially be doing. We're so wrapped up in our response to it that we just type that response out and hit send, and we don't see the response. When we're talking face to face with somebody, if we've gone a little bit too far and we can see the response on somebody's face, or maybe we can see they're not completely understanding what we're saying, we can come back from that. We can rephrase what we're doing. We can say, oh, I'm sorry, I said that in the wrong way. Let me rephrase that. Let me say it again. We don't see the effect that our online communications have on people. And we can say whatever we want. And the chances are, in a situation like that, when somebody's firing that off, you're not going to get back to them and say, hey, that was a really unfair thing to say. You really hurt me. So not getting that feedback is problematic. So before you get to that stage, the tools that we are developing are going to stop that, hopefully.
Nice. I like that. So how did you get this off the ground?
We had some ideas. So we wanted the validation. So what we actually did was we actually went to a trade show. We had no product or anything. We set up in a trade show in the Metro Centre here in Toronto. And that's like a huge place where they have trade shows. We're setting up next to multi-million-dollar companies. We have nothing. I actually thought when I walked in that people are going to go, hey, you're not a real company. Get out of here. I had imposter syndrome back then. So we just set up with our marketing materials and we had no idea what to do. But then people came over to us. They thought, Turalt, the technology of empathy? What's that? That's interesting. And we started talking to people, in those large companies. And we were getting so many stories about the problems of poor communication in email that we got such validation. And then we understood what was happening in those companies. And that gave us the impetus to move forward with this. So it was a great way of doing customer interviews without having to arrange appointments, because everybody was there and willing to speak with us. And that's initially what drove us to actually start working on our products.
No, I love this, because the other thing I was just thinking about when you were mentioning about problem with poor communication, like how many of those personal relationships and people go to therapists, that this could actually help.
Well, I tell you something, there's some bad communication at work can actually, cause such stress that can really impact on people's mental health and actually mean that people do need to go and speak to somebody. So we've got to be aware of the increasing awareness of mental health issues in work and how little things like a bad email can actually impact you. Because I got some from my boss, which really seemed to be very undermining. And I had a PhD, I'm pretty skilled. But then when I had to do some organization, she was always like sending these emails, telling me what to do. And I'm like, really? I can arrange basic stuff like this. This is very secretarial work. Why are you telling me how to do this? And it was like she didn't trust me. So it was very kind of upsetting. And I've seen that from a lot of other people, how that can really impact you negatively, and you bring that home with you that, God, my boss doesn't even trust me to arrange a meeting. She's checking up on me. This is like awful. And also there's a tendency sometimes for people to do the reply all. and basically blame somebody for something that they haven't done. And even if your boss sends out that email to correct, going, oh, I was wrong, it wasn't this person's fault, the damage is done. The damage is done to the individual, and the damage is also done to the team. Once you have done something wrong online, in text, by email, by text message, on Slack, there's no going back. You've done some damage. We want to stop the damage. We want to make sure your email and your communication is good so that it doesn't cause that damage. We want to stop that before it causes that damage.
No, this is great because now you've actually increased the awareness of that sensitivity and how people need to be aware of their perception on the other side. And then you're increasing productivity. You're also increasing and building the trust along with those relationships. So this seems to be quite the win-win-win, and something that's a tool that seems to be quite overlooked, and we forget about what the downstream impact is from being able to communicate.
Absolutely. And you hit a nail on the head there, trust. We have to have trust in our colleagues, in our boss, in the organization. And also we have to be able to trust somebody to have a very good, open and productive discussion by email is great. And to be able to know that person, what their style of email is, and to know how far you can go. Some people like that very punchy, assertive email. But for other people, it may come across completely wrong. It may come across as too harsh for that person. So this isn't about simply being nice to people. It's about understanding people's styles and how far you can have that very open and honest conversation by email. Or maybe it's like this person is very sensitive to the tone of the email, and especially when people are stressed. You know, we know that when people are stressed, they're more likely to misperceive tone. So just having that awareness builds that trust that we need in companies, whether it's a personal relationship with a colleague or a relationship with a team, the relationship with a boss, and also knowing that the company is fostering trust within its employees as well is really key to workplace engagement today.
I love that. So what excites you most about this industry, whether it's artificial intelligence or about the employee engagement?
Do you know, I think there's so much more awareness of it now. Businesses are understanding that the most important asset you have is people. And it's how people work together, how they communicate together, and having the environments to do that in. And the environments to do that in are not just beer on Friday and ping pong tables. There's a lot more to it than that. And actually working with people to build that trust, to build the empathy and emotional intelligence within your teams so that you can really do that work better and actually enjoy the work and actually, want to come to work. We don't want to go back to those days. We still have them when we were just another tool that a company would use to make profit. We're having this paradigm shift that there is something more going on in corporations, and it's not just about making money for your stakeholders.
It's a big difference now. I mean, ultimately, I see the shift with employees is that companies are starting to actually realize that they're actually consumers. They are their own change advocates of that product, but they actually are consumers, and they actually know, and you can tap into them to get more innovative ideas to how to actually even further reach that niche, because they are that niche as well. So I think that's really playing a big role in the shift in how companies understand employees, want to understand and reach out to them differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the world of work is changing, and it's changing in a positive way. And companies really need to be up to date and understanding with the way things are going, because everything changes. We've really got to work with people to make sure that what's happening in companies today is all about the people who are working there and what they can contribute, and that they want to actually be coming there and be part of the company and not just doing 9 to 5 and walking home with a paycheck.
This is great. So tell me, since this journey of an entrepreneur that you started, has there been a big aha moment or a lesson learned that in this venture or a different venture that you could share with us?
Oh, I mean, there's like so many sort of aha moments. I mean, I think for me, I didn't have like a business background. I had academic background. I was a researcher. So coming into this, there was definitely a lot of imposter syndrome. And it was like, well, how can I be CEO? I've never even really been a line manager or anything like that. I've supervised, students or anything like that. But I think what has become really important to me was finding out what my voice and also my company's voice was, and what was at the core of what I do. So I found out that when I was like busy writing all those value propositions that you're supposed to write, I just found that I was being too formulaic. I was following the instructions. I was like, what are we the Uber for X for? And it was like really holding me back. So I really just sort of sat down and reflected on what's Turalt? What's it about? Why am I doing this? And it really was, in the end, just much bigger than setting up a company and the products. And my passion is not email. I hate email much as everybody hates email at times. It's just one of those things. But my passion is people. So although we're talking about technology, although we're talking about email and online communication, my passion is people and our capacity for empathy and our humanity and the amazing things that we can do together when we connect as humans, whether it's in a business or in our personal lives. And that's what I'm doing with Chirod to actually pursue that passion. And that was the biggest aha moment, was when I realized that was why I was doing it. That's why I'm doing it. That's what Chirod is about. So it's really is this, vision that we have about, and a passion to make the world a more empathic place.
You've mentioned this twice now, imposter syndrome, and I actually just suffered that myself for the first time, and I didn't realize how crippling it is. But can I just touch upon that for a second? Like, what did you do to get over your imposter syndrome? Was there something that you said to yourself or to kind of yank yourself out going, yes, I can do it?
I got a business coach, and that's what I did. So I'm going to give a shout out to Coach Christine, who really worked with me on my imposter syndrome. And, I think I was finding it really kind of frustrating. And I see imposter syndrome for me as this big cloak that comes upon me and weighs me down. And I just cannot stand up and get things done because it's like taking me over. But I think I became like almost quite angry that this was like dragging me down and I wasn't being able to achieve what I wanted to. And, there's enough barriers in your way to creating a successful company without, ourselves bringing in all these things that don't really exist. So I think with, working on it with a business coach and really just trying so hard to, use my anger about this to like shake off that cloak, imposter syndrome cloak, that made me sort of break through that. And I'm not saying I am completely free of it, but because I'm so passionate about what I do, is when I sort of bring myself up to that again and remind myself, this is why I'm doing it. It's like, well, that cloak goes right back in the closet and that closet door gets slammed shut.
No, it's crazy. It's like once you become aware of what it is and what's kind of holding you back, then it's easier to kind of break free. It's like, but it's gathering that awareness of it. I found that was the kind of the surprise for me regarding the imposter syndrome. And once I actually had a name for it, then I'm like, okay, now I know how to deal with it. But it's amazing how many people I've spoken to that have all suffered through this syndrome without actually being aware of it.
It is, and I think you have to like sit down and think about it and realize how much it's affecting you, how much you're focusing on it, and how it's not helping you. So, it's like, okay, imposter syndrome is not helping me. I need to focus on what is going to help me. And slowly it fades into the background. Sure, you might be, have a hard day and things are not working out and you got, oh, if only I was better at this. And, I'm not really skilled at this. I'm not a great business person. It's going to kind of creep back. But you then have to go, but look what I achieved. This week's maybe not going so well. Look what I achieved last week. Yeah, I got out there. I went to that meeting. I did that presentation. I managed to get those people on board, and focus on those things and how you felt when that was actually happening. And that imposter syndrome just eases off a little bit so you can just break through again.
This is great. This is so helpful, especially for our listeners out there that are going through it. You can break through it.
You can.
You can. So in this journey, was there any tools or resources that you were able to leverage from the government or other types of groups? You mentioned about some business training.
Yes. I mean, I took on a business coach, and, she was great at just helping, especially with the imposter syndrome, just having somebody to talk and focus, very, very specifically, about that. That was very, very useful. we also, both myself and my business partner, also found the Entrepreneurship 101 course at Mars. We did that, and that was really, really useful because that was when we sort of realized that, we don't have to have an MBA to do a startup, and also that the skills that we had amassed as researchers really were going to help us. So that was also, a really good sort of aha moment. It was like, oh yeah, we can actually do that.
No, I love that. So this is great. Proof and point. You don't have to have a business background in order to succeed in business. You can get tools and all those skills. You can get those along the way, as long as you've got passion.
Yeah.
I love that. So is there any other advice you would give to our aspiring or budding Canadian innovators?
Well, so my advice is, I would say, is almost like confusing, because it's like this combination of like, go for it, and like, oh God, don't do it. I mean, because it really, I mean, they always tell you this is harder than you can imagine. And it really, really is. And I think the most important thing is to talk to people, and talk to people at all stages. Because I sometimes find that maybe when people have been very successful, they forget the little things and how they overcome those little things. So talk to people at all stages, like people who are just starting out, because you might actually find that you've actually got a skill set that you can give them advice, and they can give you some advice, and that you'll find that you might have some shared, problems, and you might go, hey, let's just meet on a weekly basis and see what technique's working for you. And also those who are getting the initial success, as well as those who are, like very successful, listen to their stories and their advice, but also take the time to understand, what you're doing and why you're really wanting to do it. Because I know there's people out there who they just want to get onto a next big idea, build a company up, and try and make that, exit, with loads of money. But if you really have, a cause that you're passionate about, what is that? Is it really the app that you're developing? Are you passionate about apps, or the impact that app is actually going to have on people's lives? Look at the big picture. I think that's what my advice would be.
I love that. What's the cause that you're passionate about?
Yeah, and I know they always say, choose something you're passionate about. Well, I'm not passionate about email, although that's the main focus of what we're doing. It's much more than that. It's about people. It's about empathy. It's about communication. So you might find that what you're passionate about is not just the product that you're actually developing.
That's great. So do you have any key business philosophies or favorite quotes? Something that kind of creates a eureka moment to help you stay focused?
Well, I always go back to one that's, life's too short. I mean, and it really is, you just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And so many people are like, oh, well, maybe when I retire, I'll go traveling around the world. And, what I have to say here is this is very personal for me. And this is something that before we started this, I didn't tell you about. But 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And that is something that keeps me focused, because you just don't know what is going to happen the next day. I do want to make a difference in my life. And I feel that I'm at a point in my life with my skills and experience and passion for what I can do, that I can make a difference. So to me, life's too short. Just go for it. And don't be afraid, because you almost have to be afraid of doing nothing. Just go for it. If you've got something that you're passionate about and what you want to do, go for it.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that you had been diagnosed, and you're still a powerhouse and going through it and trying new things and making it happen. You are an inspiration beyond belief.
I keep on going.
I love it. So you've got so many different hats to juggle. Is there a popular productivity tool that you use?
Well, my best productivity tool is maybe a little bit old school, and it's little sticky notes all over my laptop. And I actually find that the paper-based notes are quite useful, especially when you've got something that you can just quickly scribble it down, stick it on my laptop, and I can't forget it. I mean, I have Todoist, and that's great, but sometimes I find that, priorities change so fast that I don't have time to, update that list. And it's just like scribble on that sticky, shove it on the screen if it's something really, really important, and make sure that I don't have sticky notes on my screen at the end of the day, because otherwise that's bad productivity. I also find that Pocket is really great for when I'm sort of skimming through, Twitter for interesting articles. I can basically put them in Pocket and I can, read them later. So I found that is quite good so I don't get distracted. It's like, I have 5 minutes on Twitter. Oh, I'm not, and I don't read the article. I'll read the article later in the day when I've got time.
So is there something that you're currently reading or listening to, or is there some sort of something that you recommend, that thing that's kind of really inspired you?
Well, my business coach gave me a book, and it's Barking Up the Wrong Tree by Eric Barker. And that's actually really is a fascinating book about success and what produces success and what success is, and how being creative and non-conformist and being different is really good. And I got to a point in the book that I got really, really excited about. So if anyone's read the book, they'll understand what this means. So I'm pleased to report that according to the book, I'm a pirate, which is good and makes complete sense when you read the book. But I'm not going to explain it. You have to read the book to find out whether you're a pirate or not.
Oh my gosh, I love that. A pirate? Oh, I feel like I should get you an eye patch and a hook, or I'm now channeling my own youth, thinking about Captain Hook. So yeah, all right. I'm going to check that book out to see what this pirate means. So do you have a personal habit that helps you stay productive?
Well, the obsessive Post-it note habit certainly does. But I think sort of one of the things that's really important is to actually take some time to switch off as well. Because I think when you're at the early stage of running a company, you're doing everything and you feel that you should be constantly doing things, and it is very difficult to just switch off and chill. So for me, just taking some time to chill out in the evening with my cat, and my favorite sort of thing to do to chill is to watch an episode of the Murdoch Mysteries, to just switch off and chill. The chilling helps me stay productive.
Hey, that's very important, right? You don't get a lot of downtime, so you got to maximize whatever downtime you have, so it's an experience for you.
Yeah, and you got to take that time off. You really have.
You do. So is there a favorite Canadian hotspot, restaurant, town, city, festival, delight that you're into?
Well, my treat in going out is to go to my favorite restaurant, which is Fresh. I'm vegetarian, and they're great at accommodating people with allergies and problems like that. I'm one of those people you can't cater for. So they are just great. It's a great environment. The food is fabulous. So if anyone wants to connect with me and take me out for a nice meal at Fresh, I'd be very grateful.
Excellent. Well, I can definitely book that for us. And finally, how can our listeners connect with you?
You can email me. I mean, I know I've said I don't like email like the rest of them, but, I think there's some really nice things, to email, because I know we get a lot of it, but, sometimes I get some very fascinating newsletters and emails, from people. So I do find the way that people communicate by email, when it's good and it's productive and it's positive, really great. So you can email me. So I'm chris.mckillop@turalt.com. You can follow my personal Twitter at ATSCMC. There's a long story behind why my Twitter handle is ATSCMC. So if you like politics, science, artificial intelligence, lots of cat pictures, follow my personal feed, or you can follow my company at Chirod.
Perfect. I'll put that into the show notes for all of our listeners. Well, thank you so much. This has been brilliant and very insightful.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed that. And everybody, just send me an email. Go on.
I dare you to send her an email. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, innovators, for joining us this week. Our Facebook page is moving and growing each week, so please join us. I post a lot of interesting articles about Canadian innovation trends, the movers, the shakers, plus things that I think are just funny. And if you know any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me on email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in the review. I'm still channeling Gary V, that ratings and reviews are my oxygen. And remember, this is our podcast. I look forward to hearing and chatting with you next week.